Hello there. Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the No Proscenium podcast. That would be the voice of everything immersive. I'm your host, Noah Nelson, coming to you from the NoPro headquarters, aka the kitchen table here in Los Angeles. That's right, we're going old school with this one because from a certain point of view, you could say that this is an expansion of NoPro episode 273. That's where we talked with a couple of the creative team behind Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge when it released last year. And today happens to be the day when the expansion to Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, dubbed Last Call, drops as well. So this is all about the new expansion of Tales, which I got a chance to play before I talked to everybody, and my review for it is on the site probably while you're listening to this. And indeed, we will talk about it also tonight on the review crew. I'm very excited to talk about this, not just because it's Star Wars, but because of the way the release has evolved from the first release to this one, the way things of the original game have changed with this new release. Really just fascinating to get into. And I want to give a big thanks to the folks at the ILMxLAB for setting up this interview for us. And also, we had a computer malfunction on the normal press day, and had to stop the interview. And they were kind enough to reschedule and get folks in for us. So, big thank you to the team over there for accommodating little old us. It means the world to us. So, on that note, let's get into this interview. I hope you enjoy it. I know I did. And now we have the privilege of being joined by three members of the team behind Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge Last Call, the follow-up / completion of Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, the VR experience. We'll start with Jose, and then we'll kind of bounce around. I want to have you guys introduce yourselves because we've got three people and people need to track the voices.
Yeah, so my name is Jose Perez III. I'm the supervisor of experience design and creative development at ILMxLAB, and I was the director on Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge Last Call, which is a very short title, and we're really proud of how succinct we kept it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Ian?
Hi, my name is Ian Bowie. I was the lead experience designer on Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and I also moonlighted as the director of the Bounty of Bog's Drifttail director as well.
Hey there, my name's Ronman Ng. I'm the lead lighting TD on Tales of the Galaxy's Edge for both installments.
Excellent. When last we talked, Jose, we were, I think it was like fall of last year, pandemic. We were deep into pandemic at that point. And the first half of Tales had dropped. It's just under a year later, and now you're back. What's changed in the interim?
Oh man, so much. I mean, one, and my partner was saying this at the beginning of this. There's this idea that, you know, when you spend a year doing anything, you kind of would get used to it. And weirdly, I think some of that came true during this pandemic. After about a year of kind of relearning our processes, and Ian Bowie over here was a huge master of helping this whole thing work. Relearning our processes for how to make an interactive experience when you're doing it from home. It's very different. And so, the first one was a real challenge for us. I mean, I think we're really proud of what we did there, but we came out of that knowing how to work in this atmosphere. And so I think the amount of content we were able to create for part two and the quality of it and how it ties into the rest of the experience, I think is, really dramatically improved from where we were even a year ago. And so Ian, I don't know how much you want to talk to this because I'm definitely I'll run around on the floor and talk to all the designers and try to get them going, but I'm not the best at really great documentation and organizing and stuff. And Ian here really stepped up, I think, during this one to pull it together. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Ian.
Sure. So a year from there, we were just learning how to basically operate creatively in a remote situation, which is very different than when you can just go to someone's desk or grab a whiteboard and start, basically riffing together. It takes a lot more organization and a lot more directness in terms of the way that you're conveying ideas in order not to waste everybody's time, tie them up in meetings endlessly. You want creators to spend their time creating. And so we worked on a lot of different ways that we can basically enable a lot of the team to contribute creatively, as well as really upping our documentation game. So that way the goals of what we were asking everyone to do, or what we were expecting from a particular beat or a moment, were well expressed. And then we would invite in commentary on how can we do this better? What's the best way to kind of take this to the next level? And so going through that process of the last year, I think, has made us all, just on the design team, better designers. And I think as a whole team, just better communicators. So there's a lot of positive things that did come out of this that we're looking at moving forward. And as we, continue to learn like everybody else, I hope that we get more opportunities to, do this better and better. Because, you drop the ball sometimes, and then some other times you're like, oh, wow, we really nailed this. So,
yeah, I think to Ian's point, I mean, communication is really, kind of the key and all of that. But the other thing that was, really great and difficult, honestly, is when you ship something, 1 year and then you have another year to ship another thing, you get to hear the feedback, and so we're VR enthusiasts. We're all Star Wars nerds here, and we know there's a lot of Star Wars nerds out there with a lot of opinions like us, and we listen. We watch all the YouTube videos, and Cat Claw's my favorite YouTuber of all time. I don't know if you know who that is, and there are these really great things that are going on out there, and I think being able to listen to them and react where we could was really great. Our story and kind of where we were going was pretty nailed down, but there were certain mechanics, the hover pack specifically, and just some feel things that we had thoughts on, but hearing the general audiences come in and have strong opinions on it really made us take a hard look at that. And so that's one of the great things about having some time to reflect on the thing that you shipped as you're continuing to expand that project. There's a real big benefit, and you can hear people's voice and react to it.
And if I could jump in quickly, just with regards to it's our production time frame is rather short compared to what we've managed to accomplish. And I think the reality is we learn so much as we're working on these projects. And I think it was great to have a chance to take the learnings from the first part. And I'm talking primarily about rendering, because when I look at the first part, the types of environments that we tackled, and we were outdoors, we were daytime, we were like, okay, well, let's see what we could do. And I think by the time we hit last call, we took on much more challenging interior locations, nighttime settings, things that we thought, well, that's not possible. And then even the question of multiple characters that we could render on device at one time. Taking it to the finale, it was amazing how, with our rendering team and our technical artists, we managed to just squeak out every bit of performance to bring as much, complexity and beauty we can to the device.
There are a lot of different environments. There are a lot of different story types in this. So looking at the whole package, both parts, there's a little bit of Dark Forces, for those who know what that is. There's a narrative-driven immersive sim with the Jedi, 2 stories that are kind of in that vibe. You've got Ian's Gonzo IG-88 shooting gallery, bounty hunter mission, and the Doc Ondar part has a bit of an Indiana Jones vibe to it. I felt like a real relic hunter in there. Why so many different modalities? Because that's got to be a challenge, not only from rendering different characters and different types of environments, but also different types of gameplay. I mean, why pack so much into this?
Right?
What are you doing? What are you guys doing? Why are you doing this way?
There is a kitchen sink in there. I just wanted to point that out. I think one of the cool things about being at ILMxLAB is that we're not just going out to make just another game, right? I mean, we're all fans of video games and all of that, but what we're going out to do is really try to create something new. And when you have a structure like this that allows you to explore those different areas, you're able to do something like say, hey, we've got this really cool idea for like an IG-88 like bounty hunting thing, and it kind of works in this structure. Ian, you want to do a thing? And then Ian says yes and runs off and makes this like badass bounty hunter thing. You can't do that if you didn't allow for that anthological structure. And also, I'm just a fan of Tales from the Crypt and the Storyteller and all of these like fun anthological shows that I grew up with as a kid. And so thinking about that Star Wars idea of you have this primary storyteller, and as they tell these different tales, you get to go out and do that. That was all just really exciting. So the challenge was there, and I'm sure some people on the team would probably also ask that exact same question: why have we done all of this? But for me, I think why we did all of it is for exactly what we have at the end here, which is this really cool, bizarro smorgasbord of fun Star Wars VR that does have a meaningful story about, the little guy standing up for the people that are, getting knocked down by the oppressive people above him, and teaming up with that family that forms around him and doing the right thing. And so, I think, and you get to play some weird drums and, have HUD hands and all that stuff. So, having that structure and opening it that wide allowed us to be crazy and to take some of these bizarro challenges, like doing a completely IG-88 mission. You could talk about it. It's totally different. It's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, now everything's different. And that's, like you said, not easy to do. I don't know, Ian, you can speak to the challenges around that.
Like I think there's a lot of stuff that comes into it where just the expectations of like what it means to inhabit a character. And that's something we think about really deeply at XLab, is we really want to make sure that everybody coming in, like everyone who's seen The Mandalorian, has expectations of how IG units move and how they basically go into combat.
And now they're all from New Zealand, which,
yes,
which up until a year ago was just not true. And now they are, and forever shall be.
You just never heard him talk before.
Yeah.
So good. But like the idea of basically trying to make sure that we're being true to the character and that character's particular story, their perspective, and as well as like the way that they would interact with the world is totally different. And we want to lean into that as ILMxLAB. Like, you are a character in these stories. And so the way that you interact from the character's viewpoint does matter to the way that we develop them. We didn't want to just put an IG skin and you played exactly like you did when you are the droid repair tech. We really wanted to make sure that we were being true to the characters that we're inhabiting. And that does mean new mechanics. It does mean new perspectives and the way that other characters view you. Like in the IG legend, characters are very apprehensive about you. Like you're a, over 7 foot tall assassin droid coming in versus a droid repair tech. Characters react to you differently. And all that's so important when you're trying to tell this variety of anthological storytelling.
Yeah, watching the Rodian freak out at your appearance is like it's a great character beat, and it's moments like that really, I feel like, show off the potential of this idea of like action storytelling. And I just realized I want to ask you this one specifically. Did the raid at all inspire the structure of this IG-88 level, being like the film The Raid, if you know what I'm talking about?
We definitely do. Actually, the composer for that particular tale is Joe Trapanese, who did the score for The Raid, actually, and all of our legends. So basically looking at like a lot of action movies take place in a single location in a tower, and a lot of them were inspirations from Die Hard to The Raid. All of them kind of played a role in how we would kind of tackle this particular location, because we wanted it to have that vibe. And we also wanted to have a really interesting progression, and towers are so great for that, of trying to get to the top floor. There's a very simple objective, and it has to happen through it, and then we would just play with that structure to tell the story.
And Noah, if I could jump in quickly, just with regards to with regards to the modalities, I think what you're seeing is actually, Jose empowering the team to take took their best game forward, honestly, because, with giving Ian a chance to like tell this story, and each of the design levels is actually a reflection of unique individuals within our small team, really, who were sort of empowered to go, okay, here's the story. What can you do with it? And, and that is very, very, reflected in every department, whether it's environment, tech, art, and everyone kind of comes in because they want to do something. They want to do something challenging. So I think that's what you're seeing, reflections of individuals, but you're also seeing, a lot of exploration and ambition from our team.
Jose touched on this a little bit before, but I want to note, more than last year's edition, this version of Tales feels like it's in dialogue, not only with Galaxy's Edge, the park, but even the fan culture. There's some very specific details that I don't want to spoil what those are because they're too much fun. I told them before. They know what I'm thinking of. How does being in dialogue with the fandom this way change the way you approach enabling what the studio calls story living? Because that's such an interesting idea. This idea that the studio does story living, but I gotta imagine this conversation with the fandom. It becomes this two-way street, changes things a little bit, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, we are the fandom. I think it's something that a lot of people don't get, right? I was born in 1977. Star Wars has been with me my whole life. I'm a huge fan. And so some of these things are, listening to what fan reactions are and playing with those and figuring out how to incorporate them. Other ones are just us being like, oh my gosh, it would be so awesome. And we're nerding out and then realizing that fans latch onto it. And I think some of the things you're talking about specifically, we have one very deep cut in there. There's a certain thing that you can sell at Mubo's that is very hard to get at the parks now as well. Actually, not as hard as it used to be, but it got difficult for a bit. And that was more us making a joke for ourselves because of this thing that's happening. So I think we're a part of the fandom, and when you're a part of the fandom, it's easy to jump into these things and get into that dialogue. With the parks and how we kind of communicate back into that is a constant and is what I think is so incredibly exciting about this project, is that it's not just, a video game that only exists in this one small world. There's literally a physical part of this that continues on and continues the story. Mubo, this is a little known fact, and we hit it a bit in our story. Mubo has a very mad crush on Bina, who owns the creature shop, and we have just the littlest tiny hint at that stuff. But it's that stuff that you don't quite get very much yet until you start playing through all of these experiences and seeing how they weave through. So, I think one of the most exciting things about this, again, is that there's a physical world that's directly connected to this digital world, and they communicate, and there's a story that persists across both of those.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, I could spend the next hour just quizzing you and drilling you, but I know you've got to get on to making the next thing, whatever that might be. I'm looking forward to it. So, Ronman and Ian and Jose, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
it was a
Noah.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank Jose, Ian, and Ronman for being on the show. I also want to thank Anthony and Sierra again for resetting this up. They did not have to do that. That was super kind. We are talking about this on the review crew tonight. You can see my written review. You can also just randomly approach me on the internet and say, what do you think? I will talk about this thing all day long. This is a bonus episode of the podcast. We've got another full episode coming up on Friday. We've got the review crew show, which we're recording live tonight on Wednesday, but will also be up next in the feed. So just swing on by if this is your first time out with NoPro. This was a bonus episode. The full show has a whole bunch of segments and is about an hour long. And I hope you swing through. And on that note, I got to go publish some things. So, bright suns, traveler.